Hello, and welcome again to yet another episode of the Diary of a Lawyer. And in the last episode, we just briefly talked about the withdrawal or the stepping back of Standard Chartered from financing around a $5 billion project of the pipeline that will so-called EACOP pipeline that supposedly should run from Uganda to the coast of Tanzania, carrying oil. And Standard Chartered has pulled out, and it was also reported by one of the organizations, the NGOs, that tracks banks, Bank Track, based in the Netherlands, that Standard Chartered was the current chair of the Equatorial principles. And so I think it was important that we spend some time on reviewing or just a brief discussion of what the Equatorial principles are. Now, just briefly, the Equatorial principles refer to a set of principles that are intended, according to the association, intended to serve as what they call a common baseline and risk management framework for financial institutions to identify, assess, manage environmental and social risks when financing projects. And they are a number of principles which are associated with large infrastructure and industrial projects, which they claim can have, or has now commonly reported, could have adverse impacts on people and on the environment. They apply globally to what they call all the industry sectors, and they are applicable to a list of 5 financial products. One is the project finance advisory services, project finance itself, the related corporate loans, bridging loans, and related finance and related acquisition finance. And the Equatorial Principles financial institutions, which they abbreviate as EPFIs, implement the principles through their internal environmental and social risk management policies or procedures in order to comply with the principles. Now, the Equatorial principles generally, according to the association, are updated regularly or periodically to build upon implementation and expertise and ongoing learning of existing knowledge. They refer to what are designated and non-designated countries, and they make a distinction between those two categories. And they refer to designated countries as those countries that are deemed to have robust environmental and social governance, legislation systems, and institutional capacity designed to protect people and the natural environment. They go on to explain that they make no independent assessment of each country's performance in those areas. But as a proxy for such assessments, the Equatorial Principles the association requires that a country must be both a member of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and appear on the World Bank High Income Industry List to qualify as a designated country. And the data is reviewed by the association. And to that end, as of what they say, February 2013, at least many of European countries and also include the United States and Japan, Korea. Suffice it to say, it doesn't appear that any African country or looking at the lists on prima facie on the face of it, or any South American or other regional countries. It's mainly, there is, I think, Ireland and Israel, among others, but I haven't seen any African country on the list. And the scope of the principles is listed as explained before, and then finally they give an overview of what the 10 principles are, which include review and categorization, what they call as E&S assessment, which presumably refers to environmental assessment, applicable environmental standards, E&S management systems, an action plan, stakeholder engagement, a grievance mechanism, independent review, covenants, independent monitoring and reporting, and then reporting and transparency. So those are the 10 principles as an overview of the Equatorial principles. And so at the time that Standard Chartered pulled out of the EACOP deal, it was reported by the NGO Banktrack that Standard Chartered was the chair at that time, and so one could speculate that being in that position and taking those commitments, they may or may not have looked at evidence and considered their position and involvement in this project at least contradictory or untenable, to say the least. That's speculation, but based on their chairmanship and membership of the principles, and then pulling out, having previously given indications that they were going to go forward and they're conducting due diligence, I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to make such a conclusion. And so there we shall leave it on this episode of the Diary of a Lawyer. And what we have covered is what the Equator principles are as in relation to financial institutions and environmental matters and the detrimental impact thereof on the various communities and other stakeholders involved. It has said that I think around 138 financial organizations from around 38 countries are members, which would be generally sizable membership that carries its weight, whose decisions cannot just be ignored. And so there we shall leave it again on this episode of the Diary of the Lawyer. We shall speak again. Thank you, and thank you for listening. Thank you. Bye.